Hey guys, what's up? Welcome back here to today's edition of Intuitive Angling, and really appreciate you guys coming by the channel, spend some time with me today and check the video out. I always really appreciate that. And guys, today I sort of want to talk about 2025 and bass fishing, sort of look into my crystal ball a little bit. Not only my crystal ball, but I'd be curious to get your guys' viewpoint on this as well after we get done with the video. But I sort of wanted just to talk about some things at the top of my mind as far as how I think what we're fixing to see as far as next year in the sport of bass fishing from a lot of different levels, from the economic standpoint, from the technological standpoint, the aesthetic standpoint, and just sort of the overall vibe of where we're headed at. So we're going to get into that in today's video. Also, guys, just a quick invitation. I'd just like to invite everybody out there, if you haven't considered to subscribe to Intuitive Angling, I'd like to invite you to hit that subscribe button. We also got channel memberships here on Intuitive Angling where you get extra videos every week that aren't seen by the public. You can just click on the join button on my homepage for information there. And also I'd like to invite everybody to check out all my links I put in the description. If you guys want to get some good deals on tackle or support the channel, it's a good way to help out. So really appreciate that. Okay, guys, for 2024 season's getting ready to get wrapped up pretty much. I mean, we got some championship events. I got my Toyota Series Championship in November. But for the most part, it's pretty much winding down. It sort of gives us some time to reflect on the past year and focus on next year. And I sort of want to just, take some time in this video to sort of give you my opinion on what we're going to have looking forward to in 2025. Excuse me. Allergies here, the ragweed's terrible here in Southwest Missouri. I'm sort of giving my viewpoint from that end of it here. Now, there's a couple different things to look at here as far as what I'm sort of looking forward to in 2025, as far as sort of my prediction where it's going to go to. So I want to sort of approach it from a couple different angles. First of all, let's talk about the economic impact or the economic trajectory that the sport's going to get into. I mean, I know the last, several years with the high interest rates, the boat sales have been, down in the country, tackle sales have been down a little bit. I think a lot of that's more contributed to forward facing sonar than anything. But one of the things that I really look forward to, guys, is I think next year in 2025, we're going to have a lot stronger, as far as an economic vibe within the fishing industry. Now, one of the things about an election year, every single time, every election I've ever been around since I've been voting since 1980 was you always have, you always have one party trying to root for the economy to fail. You have another party rooting, for the economy to succeed, which whatever they think they're going to give them a political benefit. But the reality of the situation, we're entering 2025 in a pretty strong economic position. Everybody knows how the stock market's at record high, unemployment's at record low. Inflation's been dropping every quarter since 2021. It's supposed to continue to drop in 2025. But the main thing is, we finally started seeing some interest rate, reductions, this past month, and it's expected to go into 2025 too. And I think I saw some figures that they were saying that some of the interest rates for boat and house loans may be down to just a little over 5%. So from that standpoint, since you do have inflation continuing to be reduced each quarter, interest rates going down, I look for like the tackle sales, to pick up a little bit. I definitely look for the boat and motor, end of the industry to pick up. So I think from that position here, I think it's going to be better than 2023, 2024. And so that's a good thing for the sport there. Like I said, one of the big things as far as why the tackle industry has taken such a hit the last couple of years is because of forward-facing sonar. That's just the reality of the situation. When you have more and more people using that technology, which has a much more limited sphere of potential lure categories out there, you have a tremendous, the industry, the fishing tackle industry takes a big hit, and it has taken a big hit. All of your traditional lure categories, like your crankbaits, your buzzbaits, your spinnerbaits, traditional real bass fishing lures, those sale numbers are down, prior to the explosion of forward facing sonar that we've seen about 2 or 3 years ago. So one of the things that that is tied into that a little bit. I think that we're starting to see a little bit of return to the normalization of bass fishing in the mainstream bass fishing community, because I think a lot of people realize that this whole push for forward-facing sonar and fishing, and the way that dictates that you fish, it's just not rewarding and satisfying. I mean, people, they want to see a big bass come out from underneath a log and hit a spinnerbait. They want to see a big bass, slam a zare spook on a main lake point. They want to pitch a jig into a bush and see their line jump. They don't want to just, sit there with their head glued to the screen and, feel heavy pressure on their forward facing or sonar minnow or their little weenie worm. It's not rewarding. It's not satisfying. There's just nothing gratifying about it. So I think you're gradually seeing a return a little bit to more the normalization of bass fishing techniques, which again is going to strengthen the fishing economy, once those tackle categories start to pick up. Now, from that standpoint there, when you're looking at, how that's going to influence it, a lot of this has to do with the tournament organization setting the trend for forward-facing sonar, and we've seen some real changes. Now, this is sort of a double-edged sword, because what has happened in late 2024, the tournament organizations reluctantly basically said, they're saying in one word, they're basically saying without saying it that, yeah, nobody likes forward-facing sonar. Forward-facing sonar is a pain in the butt. We're going to make some little token adjustments to satisfy everybody that's outraged about this, but we're still going to do what we want to, and we're still going to take the money from the electronic companies. So they made some very token adjustments, to the forward-facing sonar rules and limitations. Basically, it didn't mean anything whatsoever, but nevertheless, there was an acknowledgement of it, that was an issue. And that particular trend, when you start having an awareness, even if it's something that's a token awareness, it sort of changes that entire vibe of what people purchase and what they buy in the sport and the way that they fish. So I think in 2025, you're going to see a percentage of the bass fishing population in public start to return a little bit more to the normal techniques, because not only that, they realize that you can compete without it. Like, myself, I finished top 20 in both of the circuits I fished this year for Angler of the Year, obviously with no forward-facing sonar. You can compete, you can enjoy, and you can have a good time fishing without having to use that technology. Now, as far as the tournament end of it, there's not going to be anything different in 2025. It's like every single tournament, or not going to say every single, 99% of the tournaments are still going to be continued to get one with the cheater box. Transducer limitations and screen size limitations and all that type of stuff, it doesn't mean crap. There's nothing going to change with it. You're still going to see every Sunday or the final day of every tournament is going to be dominated by the cheater box until it's completely removed from tournament fishing. That's going to continue to do so, because you simply cannot compete without it. When you're talking in terms of winning a tournament and having the biggest numbers of bass that are sustainable over a long time, that is what forward-facing sonar does. It goes in there and it robs those bass. It takes those bass out of their offshore sanctuaries that they need to be protected and they need to have to hide to get away from fishing pressure, and it allows anglers to catch them. So therefore, as far as the tournament wins, you cannot compete without it, simply because you're tapping into a percentage of the bass on the lake that really should be protected that are not being protected. So I don't think we're going to see much of a difference as far as, on the tournament spectrum. I don't think you're going to see much of a difference with that. One of the things that I do see with this is I do see the groundswell of support for the anti-tech movement in fishing. And I think that's going to continue, because what happens is the last couple of years, a lot of the trendsetters in the sport, professional anglers, marquee anglers, they have been very reluctant to grow a spine and come out against this, even though they don't like it, but they don't want to make waves. They don't want to come out. They don't want to have their fan base mad at them, or they don't want to have half of their fan base or whatever percentage that are the pro cheater box faction out there. They don't want to have those guys mad at them. They don't want to make waves with their sponsors. They don't want to be seen as somebody that, you know, is a thorn in the side of the company for whatever reason. They don't want to be ostracized by the tournament organizations. They don't want to have a label put on them by the tournament organizations as being a troublemaker. So a lot of the guys out there, they just keep their mouth shut. They don't think it's worth it. They're very grudgingly going along with it, even though they don't want it. But what has happened is you're having more and more people break that glass ceiling. You're having more and more pros. You're having more and more high-profile anglers basically come out and tell everybody the emperor has no clothes on, and that forward-facing sonar is cheating. It's not a legitimate way to catch fish. Tournament wins that are won with forward-facing sonar are not legitimate wins. It's all artificial. It's fake. It's created through technology, and a lot of people are finally coming out and having the courage to say that. And I think that you're going to have more and more people do that in 2025 because it's getting more socially acceptable. It's sort of like, you know, back when I started fishing back in the late 80s and early 90s, one of the things that Ray Scott did back then is he had a very narrow definition of what people should look like as a pro angler. You shouldn't wear flashy clothes. You couldn't have long hair. You had to fit this mold of a pro angler. And Ray was very vocal if you didn't do that. And I think that's the same thing with what you see now with forward-facing sonar, is that prior to this past year, people thought they had just to play the game and they didn't have a right to speak out on it. But people are becoming more vocal now because they realize that the majority of the public is on their side with it. So overall, looking in 2025, excuse me, guys, looking in 2025, guys, I look for it to be an improvement. I do. I'm pretty optimistic moving into 2025 about the direction we're headed. Like I said, I'm pretty, optimistic about the economic, trend that we've been on the last 3 or 4 years will continue in 2025. I'm pretty, confident that boat sales and tackle sales are going to increase. I'm pretty confident that this entire anti-technology, anti-forward-facing sonar movement is going to get stronger and stronger. I see people getting more environmentally aware of what we're doing to our lakes and rivers. I tend, you guys know on this channel, guys, I'm very critical a lot of times. A lot of you guys come across and say that I'm negative, but one of the things I'm going to say leading to 2025 is I think that we're going to be on a little bit of an uptick. I feel that we're getting ready to turn a corner. And when I'm talking about turning that corner, I'm talking about turning the corner to returning to some sense of normalcy, and where the tradition and the heritage of the sport becomes more important than trying to morph the sport into something that it's not, which people have been working really hard the last 2 or 3 years to try to morph and turn this sport into something that it's not. So from that standpoint, I'm cautiously optimistic that it's going to be better in 2025, and we'll see. But that's just sort of the vibe that I'm getting from all ends around here. So anyway, guys, let me know what y'all think about it, and we'll talk later.